and the writ percentage is actually pretty low. Having those two elected positions, yes, I can see things are going good now. Having those two elected positions could give people living in the area a little more voice in how these things are handled. An eviction is the legal process a landlord uses to regain possession of a property from a tenant, and it usually has to go through the court system. It typically starts with a notice to vacate, which in Texas is usually a 3-day notice, unless the lease specifies a different time frame. If the tenant does not comply, the landlord may file for eviction. And then the court usually schedules within 21 days. After the judge issues a judgment, the tenant has about 5 days to appeal. And in Travis County, the average timeline for the moment the case is filed to when a judgment is issued is 20 days, which means the process can move fairly quickly. Now, writ of possessions. This is where the confusion usually happens. An eviction is the court decision, but a writ of possession is the need for the enforcement of the eviction. They provide a day and a time. The constable delivers a notice to the tenant 24 hours in advance and oversees the removal of items from the property, including the tenants, if needed, as quickly as possible. The items stay out for the tenant or anyone else to take. That could mean various people are rummaging through boxes or bags, the lawn or the driveway. And many tenants actually move out before the writ stage, so filings don't necessarily equate forced removals. Now, one of the biggest challenges that property managers face is the number of items left. It's very common to see furniture, mattresses, bags, and clothing and general trash and debris still inside. At the same time, there's pressure to turn over the unit quickly so it can be cleaned, repaired, prepared for the next tenant. Still, you must ensure everything is handled properly and in compliance with city waste and disposal regulations. Given all of these logistical challenges, reliable operational partners are essential. Now, several factors have contributed to the increase we've seen in recent years. Rapid rent increases have made housing less affordable, while protections and assistance programs have expired, and the renter population continues to grow. The median judgment amount in Travis County eviction cases was about $2,984 in 2024, which suggests that many evictions involve several months of unpaid rent before a case is even filed. Some multifamily properties may soon end up filing evictions against 20 to 30% of households. Now, some Senate Bill 38, some key changes to be aware of. The overall process is designed to be faster and more structured with clear required timelines, which should help reduce delays. 2, the option for summary disposition. This means that a court can issue a judgment without going to a full trial, which could shave roughly 1 to 2 weeks off the typical 20-day eviction timeline. Notices. 3, the notices can be delivered electronically, such as an email, if allowed under the lease agreement. And some situations actually require a notice to pay or vacate. And now also, if a constable is unable to execute a writ within 5 days, the law may allow a trained off-duty officer to carry out that process instead. The legal tools are stronger to address unauthorized occupants and squatters. The goal is to provide more effective options when someone is occupying a property without legal permission. The interesting thing about SB 38 is Texas evictions were already fast, but now this could reduce the entire process, including the writ, by 2 to 5 days or 10 to 20%. And now I saw on Monday that since Prop Q did not pass, Austin cut its rental assistance budget by about 25%. And the city also ended the application program entirely. The rental assistant money from 2025 budget runs out this month in March. Without those rent checks preventing evictions earlier in the process, a larger percentage of filings are expected to reach the writ of possession stage. And because of these changes and following current trends, Travis County could see around 17 to 18,000 evictions this year. Even if only 10 to 15% reach the writ stage, that could still mean 2,000 forced move outs. And at 1 to 2,000 pounds of belongings per unit, that's potentially several million pounds of items being removed and hundreds of households facing instability. And now, when an eviction or writ of possession happens, the clock starts ticking. Operational readiness becomes essential, and units need to be cleared quickly, safely, sustainably, and in compliance with city regulations. And that is where specialized services come in, which Kelly is going to talk to us about.
Awesome. Aslan, thank you so much for doing all this deep research about Senate Bill 38, about the ending of the rental assistance, which property managers, I know that's going to affect some of your properties pretty significantly. So let's talk a little bit about how IREP can be your partner in helping you through what's about to get probably a little wild when it comes to the eviction world. So we're a one-stop sustainable shop, handling cleanouts and customer success system that prioritizes fast scheduling, consistent execution. So Aslan has gone into a lot of detail about how evictions and writs work. Once your eviction gets to the writ status, that clock is ticking. And even if it is just an eviction that ends up with just a lot of leftover things in the unit, it can still be chaos. So this is where we come in. While half of our business is actually just getting bulk from around dumpsters from apartment complexes all over Central Texas, we are very experienced in eviction trash outs and writ of possession executions. Me personally, I'm very experienced on the side of actually executing the writ of possession from the perspective of a hauler, since I was doing the work for 7 years. But I was also a property manager for 3.5 years. So I've been on both sides of this. Everything that happens once the legal process is done and the physical work begins, this is where IREP comes in. We can actually even help you change the lock during a writ if that's just, if you don't have a handyman, if you have a single family home, because the constables are not going to leave until the locks are changed. The thing that property managers tell us that they appreciate the most about us is not just that we have the muscle to show up and haul the junk. It's that we have genuinely built our company around reliability. We prioritize fast scheduling because we know that if the constable tells you your writ is scheduled for 1 o'clock on next Tuesday, we have to be there. We have to be there at 1 o'clock on Tuesday. We will show up with the crew and trucks ready to go, which you think would just be obvious if you call someone like us and say, we need you here at Tuesday at 1 o'clock. But if you've worked in property management long enough, it's not always the case with some vendors that they say they're going to be there and they don't always show up. But another thing that makes us a little different, you can get a lot of hired help to get the things out, but it's what happens to these items after they leave your property. We do not do the easy and inexpensive thing and take it all directly to the landfill. We work really hard to divert and repurpose as much as we possibly can. That means we're donating things. We have community reuse partnerships. We've donated all over the city, and we even operate our own little resale shop on South Congress where we have an entire free section. So we do try to sell some things so we can pay the rent, but eventually if it doesn't sell after a certain amount of time, it just moves to our free shelf. We just want to keep it out of the landfill. We want to keep it in the circular economy. We are genuinely able to give a lot of items second life. And to be honest, sometimes the stuff we see during these cleanouts can be very interesting. Evictions are stressful, but for us, they kind of come with a treasure hunt. And speaking of interesting, let me tell you, if you've never been through a writ, there are a few things that can happen on Writ Day. Writs can be very memorable. They can be straightforward or they can be very interesting. So just a few stories from our wheelhouse of all the writs that we've done. One of them got rescheduled 3 different times. Every time we would show up with our crew, trucks loaded, ready to go. One time there was a shooting in South Austin, so all constables got redirected to handle that. So no constable showed up. We actually had to call and figure out what was going on, why there was no constable, and that's why. Totally understandable. Second time we came to this writ, the constable that showed up deemed the situation unsafe, that the tenant was unstable, and so we had to reschedule it once again. Another writ that we had, we cleared everything out of a 3rd-story apartment. So took it down 2 flights of stairs, got everything piled by the curb, and then we all left because, as some of you know, with writ of possessions, you have to leave it out on the curb for a reasonable amount of time. Well, once everyone left, later that evening, the tenants broke back into their 3rd-story apartment and moved all their stuff back in. So then it became a breaking and entering case, and so then we have to back out until the police or law enforcement come back out. Another 3rd-story apartment writ ended with the tenants pulled their U-Haul up once we got everything bagged up and put on the curb and tossed it all into their U-Haul and drove off. So we basically packed and did the hard part of their move for them. The last little story I'll bring up is we did have a writ of possession where the constables were knocking on the door to remove the tenant. And suddenly they heard what they thought was a gunshot, and they drew their guns, and we retreated back behind the dumpster. Turns out the tenant actually was gone, left their cat behind, and the cat had knocked over a lamp. And when the bulb exploded, it sounded like gunfire. So we have tons of these stories. I could literally do a 2-hour webinar about some of these. But all these stories are a good reminder that every writ is a little different. There's the basic rules, but it depends on the constable. And it depends on the property manager. Some of the constables make you get everything out, all the way down to every candy wrapper. And then some of them just say, get the furniture and the clothes, and then we'll call it a day, which means when you go back the next day, you still have to get everything out so that you can flip the unit. And then the property manager now gets to decide what is a reasonable amount of time to leave the items on the curb. The standard was always 24 hours, but we've been in situations where once the constables drive off, they tell us to take it. So whatever their definition of a reasonable amount of time is what we do. So one of the reasons that I am so comfortable talking about this is, like I said before, I spent 7 years in the field doing the hauling myself. I've been in the units. I've carried couches down the stairs. I've figured out how to get a refrigerator through a doorway that clearly wasn't designed for refrigerators. And because I also did property management for 3.5 years, I really do know a lot about what the property managers actually need in these situations. And I'm able to train my team on how to best effectively support these property managers, because they don't just need someone with a truck and muscle. They need a team that shows up prepared, that knows what they're doing, works quickly, handles things professionally, and just helps the property managers get that unit turned over as fast as absolutely possible. So these days I spend a lot less time, carrying couches, and a lot more time working on growing the company, because our goal is to expand IREP across Texas so we can support property managers in more cities. And really our goal is to save more things from the landfill while supporting these property managers. But everything we do is still based on the same mindset that we built when I just had a little Ford F-150 and a 12-foot trailer, that we're going to show up, we're going to solve the problem, and we're going to make the process easier for the property manager. So just a summary to kind of tie this back to what Aslan spent a lot of time researching and preparing for this webinar is up here on the screen. Just, Travis County eviction filings are at decade high levels. And we fear that it is just going to get worse with the new law and the cut in rental assistance throughout the city of Austin. Most cases are going to move very quickly. All of these changes are pretty much pro landlord. The process is going to be streamlined. Everything's going to go super fast. Now there is going to be the option of, they used to just say, you got to get out. Now you have the option of, if you just get caught up on your rent, you can stay. But they are allowing electronic notifications to go out. And that concerns me a little bit, because I do know a lot of people whose inboxes are just flooded. And I'm worried that tenants are going to get these notices to vacate via email, and they're just going to miss them. And it's just going to be a surprise when the constable shows up at their door and says, you got 24 hours to get out. So while right now the majority of evictions don't get to writs, I'm worried that with them being able to send the notices via email, I think more of these are going to turn into writs than what we are used to. So, and tenants just aren't going to have the resources that, like Aslan mentioned earlier, 2,000 families applied for rental assistance and only 180 got helped every month. And so with that being gone, I think we're going to see an increase in our unhoused population. And this is just going to cause a lot of stress on property managers. So, Asla, is there anything else you'd like to add to what we've talked about today?
No, I don't think so. I just, I would expect more to get to that writ of possession stage, seeing as like a lot of rental assistance programs, not necessarily just in Austin, but across the board, have been cut. So you have the option to pay or vacate, but now there's less help to pay. So it's possible.
Yeah. And so, the only advice I could give to, as someone who was a property manager in the past, even though, I've done junk removal longer than I did property management, is keep your line of communication open with your property manager. I can't stress that enough. If 5 days before rent is due that you're not going to have rent, go talk to your property manager. You'd be surprised. Sometimes some of them are willing to work with you. I think you'll have an easier time with the single family home landlords. If you live in an apartment complex with some of these like big corporate property management companies, the property manager's hands could be tied. They might just be following what their corporate office is instructing them to do. So, but regardless, just don't let you not paying rent catch your property manager by surprise. Because sometimes you can avoid an eviction. Sometimes it's just a broken lease. That's better than an eviction. I will tell you, to have a broken lease on your record over an eviction is better, especially if you get into a payment plan to pay off the broken lease. So that's the advice that communication is key, for sure, for anyone in any industry, but especially with your property managers. If anyone here on the chat has any questions about any of this, if you don't think of it now, but you think of it later, just reach out to us at info@irepjunkremoval.com. We do have a lot of connections with, attorneys, and there are some organizations out there that still exist that will provide assistance. It's just the city doesn't have that money anymore. So, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're pretty well connected, especially Aslan and I both. We're in a lot. We do a lot throughout the community, and we can connect you with someone if you have any questions about any of this. So I hope this was informative and helpful, especially for. We do have a question. Why are evictions so high currently? So yeah, I'll go back some slides to kind of give you that summary, but there's a streamline now. They're going to happen faster. There are I'm going to let you jump in here.
It's on the eviction slide, but it really has increased over the past couple of years, because there were pandemic related things in place, programs in place that kind of kept people from being evicted. And like I said before, rental assistance programs were there to provide help financially to those people to not be evicted, so they could make their rent in time so they wouldn't be evicted. But now, since a lot of that has, gone away over the past couple of years, we're basically playing catch up. And now, since we're still playing catch up with these new laws coming in place starting this year, it's just we feel that it's going to kind of enhance those numbers a little bit more.
Yeah,
COVID
you're right.
cushion. Yeah.
Because if you look at, I like the COVID cushions. That's funny. If you look at the trends, if you see here in 2020, 2021, how evictions were pretty much non-existent because of those eviction bans, and a lot of landlords got, we understand why that happened, obviously, but it put some landlords in some predicaments where they were kind of relying on that rent money to pay their mortgage. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, a lot of the cases, there's several months of unpaid rent, before the eviction is even filed. So, the landlords kind of missed out on a lot of money. And, with these COVID cushions and everything, sometimes it can create a habit, or people just get comfortable and they're kind of out of the groove of needing to do certain things to keep themselves out of it. And so it's just kind of like a whirlwind of stuff all at once.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm originally from the Chicagoland area, and people up there tell us that we already had much faster eviction process than they did. I mean, people could end up staying in a property 6 to 8 months before they even got booted out. In Texas, it was usually within 30 to 45 days that you could get them out. And now it's going to be even shorter. So we're just going to see, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the lack of rental assistance and the increased timeline. The tenant appeal window only being 5 days. I mean, usually it's taking them a couple days just to process that they're getting evicted. So, and one thing I didn't think to bring up in this webinar is that, there is actually, if it's coming up, right? You're not going to be able to pay your rent. You're probably going to have to break your lease or get evicted. There's some services we can provide. If you are going to have to downsize, let us come haul your stuff off and consign it for you in our resale shop. At least get some money back in your pocket so that you can hopefully not have an eviction on your record. So. Well, if there are no other questions, I would just like to say thank you to everyone who hopped on today for our first webinar. We got off to a little shaky start, but I think we got it going. Our information's here on the screen. If you want to screenshot that, take a picture of it. It's our phone number and our website. We have tons of ways to contact us through our website. And if you just need connections to other property managers, maybe you just need to downsize out of the apartment you're in, you need something cheaper. We service apartment complexes all over Austin, have great relationships with our property managers. So let us help you in any way we can. We're not just here for the property managers, we're also here for the tenants. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are here and happy to pass resources, knowledge, education, anything else, because it's all about supporting the local community and, educating and helping each other and then letting it spread out. And I would also like to quickly add in, if you registered for this webinar ahead of time and you are on our streaming page, I actually have a form below the video. If you have a few seconds to just quickly fill that out for us, that would be greatly appreciated.
Awesome. Thanks, Aslan. I'm going to sign off by saying pizza boxes are not recyclable. Put them in your compost bin, please. It's one of the biggest things we educate people. If you'd like to know why, send us a message, either social media or email. I'll tell you why pizza boxes are not recyclable. So thanks for joining us for Property Pulse. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next month.